Hi, Marcus.
Hi.
Where
Hi.
are you? Where in the world are you?
Right now I'm in Stuttgart, actually, my hometown, almost my hometown, but I'm not at home, but I'm with friends, and I'm sitting on the balcony here.
Well, good morning.
It's right.
Good morning. Good morning from New Zealand. So we'll just start. We'll just get in. Congratulations. I mean, I can tell, you know, as a filmmaker, I know that this was an epic for you. I can just imagine. I can just imagine. So we'll talk a little bit about that. When did you start? As I understand it, it's the first time the World Economic Forum has allowed a documentary team to be part of the action, if you like. How did you begin? How did you get in, basically?
Actually, it was like that like 3 years ago, Christian Bates, the producer, approached me saying that like 5 years ago, all in all, like 2 years before, 3 years before, he got his first interview with Klaus Schwab, when he was asking him if he would be ready or if he would be willing to accept a film. And he had that conversation with him, and Klaus Schwab didn't say no. His team said no in the very beginning. They said it's no way. But Schwab was very almost excited about it if and only if it's not a film about him, but about his institution, actually. And then Christian hired like 2 directors, and they failed in a certain way because it's so complicated. And then in the end he approached me and was asking if I would be willing to step in. And I mean, what shall I say? I mean, I had all my preconceptions, like everybody else, about that event, but I promised him to meet at least Klaus Schwab. And that meeting changed everything because I was quite astonished. First of all, I didn't know that there is this Klaus Schwab. I thought it's a place with a bunch of capitalistic people talking and trying to get as much money as possible. And when I met him, I saw there was a person who 50 years ago had a dream, had a vision. If you could make the world a better place, if you gather all the most important people on earth. And maybe from hindsight, you would think today, no, that's not possible to do that with powerful people because they would anyhow try to get as much for themselves. But 50 years ago, I thought that's a plausible idea. Yeah. And then he had another idea, which is the multi-stakeholder approach when he was saying that a stock company is not only responsible for their employees, but also for not only for the stock prices, but also for the employees, for the nature, for society as a whole. Yeah. And with these 2 visions, at least there was someone who had a vision 50 years ago, and who could I follow on that journey to understand what happened with that vision, why we are also disappointed about, even so there is this platform where they're really all coming. And that was the moment when I told him, okay, I'm going to give him 3 films of mine, and I want him to watch them, that he understands what it is, the secret of documentary filmmaking, that we need to look behind the curtain. We need to understand what it's at stake there when he's talking to head of states. And that's what he was doing. He was watching these 3 films. In the next 2 weeks, he was coming back to me, and I overcame my preconception and started to make that film.
And you know, it felt to me that you had a relationship. He trusted you. I felt that you could sense that he trusted you, and that really is, I think, obviously the key to your film, is that he trusted you. Did you have full editorial control? Did he want any kind of say? How did that go?
No, we had full editorial control. Of course, he wanted to watch the film, and that we agreed, but not in a contract or something like that. There was no contract written. But I promised him, as a person, I promised him, as I'm doing with all the protagonists,
Of course.
I would always let them watch the film in order to understand what happens, and that's then with these emotions I'm going into the final editing. It's always the same thing. So I did the same thing with him, and interesting enough, he, other than his team, of course his team, they were very worried, and it was hard for them to swallow some of the critique in the film, and the interview I did with him when he was with
In
Monsanto.
the car? Yeah.
Yeah, in the car, and also the Monsanto interview about Monsanto. So he, of course, it was hard for him, and but he was always the one who said, "I'm congratulating you. It's great what you've done. I feel comfortable." So he was accepting more than his team. And this, I had the same thing I had when I was doing a film about the International Criminal Court, about Luis Moreno Campo, the prosecutor. It was the same thing, but Luis Moreno Campo didn't. And it was the same with Klaus Schwab. He was very open-minded, actually.
That's fantastic. Well, you really did sense that, and I think that's what makes your film powerful, is that you get a sense of him as a human being. Was there much argy-bargy with the others coming and going, the Al Gores, the Angela Merkels, or is some of that archive material? Is there much archive material in the films? Let's start with that. Is there much archive, or is it mainly yours?
No, it's all ours, actually.
Right.
We've shot everything, and these Al Gores, and actually this is the beauty of the access. Actually, we got so incredible access, but not only through him, but also through his team, because we were a very small team, like almost only camera and me, because I was doing the sound, but they all knew us, and everybody knew us, and they accepted us, and indeed what you said, they trust us. And so that's how we came into that situation. For example, when Bolsonaro was there,
that's extraordinary. That sequence is extraordinary. That him in the room, honestly, it's an extraordinary sequence. Yeah.
And it was like that. Al Gore already knew me, so we were up there where they were all standing around, and they were like letting him at the side. They ignored him a little bit, and then I approached Bolsonaro, and I was asking him if I could, because I'm making the sound, I'm making a film about Klaus Schwab, if I could take the sound from him, and he accepted. And then we were shooting there a little bit, and suddenly Al Gore saw us, and he took advantage from that very moment, and he approached him because we knew each other. So, and then Greenpeace, Jennifer Morgan did the same thing, and suddenly you understand how difficult it is once you confront such a person, how difficult it is to tell them what you think about them, about diplomacy, that suddenly it's a person you're worried in a certain way, you can't even get your words out of your mouth. So you understand how difficult diplomacy is, and sometimes maybe how brave in a certain way Klaus Schwab may be when he's confronting all those people.
It does strike me that one of the themes in your film, and tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm reading this into it, was that sort of the juxtaposition and the jostling between the activism of the people like Jennifer Morgan, and the diplomacy, and the balance between, she was pushing all the time. She wanted Klaus to be more of an activist than the diplomat. Was that something you were conscious of, that tension between, in terms of your storytelling, the tension between the diplomacy and the need for diplomacy and the activists and the demands of the activists?
I mean, first of all, I didn't even know that the activists were invited to come. Then the second thing is, I thought maybe if the activists are invited to come, maybe they are really a sideshow. But they're not. That's the interesting thing. We are full of our preconceptions. My preconceptions were like all the others. It's exactly almost exactly the opposite. And you can feel that slowly that I think their main agenda is actually what Greenpeace is asking for. Yeah. And on the other side, there's all these people who are doing their business between each other, but I couldn't see almost nothing else than they were pushing so much these agendas. I mean, it's even like that some people would say, maybe it's too much. Maybe we shouldn't intervene too much in it. I mean, there's people who are saying the Green Deal, because after we were finishing shooting, I mean, actually, Christine Lagarde, she's now the head of the ECB, and she's pushing the Green Deal. And von der Leyen, she is now in Brussels, and she is pushing the Green Deal. Right, so there are people suddenly appearing, they say, no, that's too much, actually. I mean, this global reset, I mean, that we suddenly shouldn't fly anymore, and maybe it's too much. So it's interesting, and for me, that was the most important thing in this film. First of all, they are trying to change the world. Of course, they are appeasing. So they bring Bolsonaros and Trumps in, and you can now argue, is that good or bad? Then is it good or bad that you bring all these companies in, because you can only change something if you have them there? So is it good that you have Monsanto there, or where is the limit? Where do you have to stop? Whom you are inviting and whom you are trying to persuade to make the world a better place?
And your film does, I mean, there's a clear arc in the film that takes us to the what you're talking about, to the climate change moment with Greta and the impact of that. And that, to me, felt like the arc of your film. Was that what you expected when you started? You sort of has indicated now that was a surprise to you. Did you think that that's where you would take the film?
No, I didn't, but it was a sign of a time. And that's actually why I agreed to do that film, because I could feel very, very well it's the moment to make that film, because we are all fed up with the elite. We think the elite is not in control anymore, and we can very well see that there is a protest arising, a upheaval from the people and also from the youth. And that's what happened suddenly, that that suddenly Greta appeared on the stage, and she was pushing. And I think it was very interesting that that Schwab was actually embracing the youth instead of pushing them aside and saying, you have no place here. He was embracing them. He was saying, okay, we did a lot of errors, mistakes by indebting us too much, and by putting all the burden on your shoulders, and you have a right to uprise and to go on to the streets. So I think the only way of getting them, of not being divided, or not dividing us further and further, you have to bring us together. I think that's what he wants.
I mean, and that I think the scene where Jennifer asks him if he'll play her video, and he says yes without even seeing it, is a really strong example of that. Yeah, really clear.
It's exactly that. That doesn't mean that I have an opinion. I mean, the film doesn't have an opinion. The film only wanted to let them give the possibility to say what they are on for, why they are doing it. And if you see a Dominic Worry or a Murat Sönmez, so the people are working for him. I mean, I would definitely say they all want the world to be a better place. I mean, especially Dominic, who started actually in the same NGOs than Jennifer, And he says, okay, I can do more at the World Economic Forum because there are more powerful people. I can influence them, and I need these companies and the head of states to work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether this is possible and in the end we will be able to make the world a better place, that's on a different page. But
Yeah.
I would at least say these people I met, and I met them like I didn't choose them. I met them because I knew they're heads of their departments and I wanted to know what they're for. And I could see, for me, being 2 years with them, I believe that they want to change the world and make them better and not to make them worse.
Yeah. Do you think
Probably.
that do you think, sorry to interrupt, do you think that Carl's, I wasn't sure at the end if he's disappointed or optimistic. Do you think, you know, he's in his 80s, he's maybe coming to the end of, I mean, he blows you away that at 80 he changes languages at the drop of, I mean, extraordinary individual. But do you think in his heart, is he disappointed that they haven't achieved more in 50 years, or is he optimistic?
Both. I think he's disappointed, and that's why he wants to accelerate everything. He wants to hurry up, that something really changes. But on the other side, he's a very optimistic person, and he understands that you just have to continue working, and he will work until I think, he has no energy left anymore. He will continue working step by step. He's waking up early in the morning at 5, swimming first. He swims against the machine. And he goes into bed with the primetime news. That's every day. Every day he is continuing working, and I think that's at least. And that's what I thought. After all, I thought, wow, at least he's a person who fights. And probably if you are doing that, you will make a lot of mistakes. Maybe it's the wrong thing to have a Christine Lagarde now at the ECB trying to push this agenda. We don't know if that's good or bad. Does a central bank has the right to choose whom to help with all these billions? I don't know, actually. I just don't know. It would be another film. But
yeah, for sure.
But I think it's our preconceptions that there's people who wants to destroy the world, or who are just working for their own pockets.
Power, yeah.
There are these people, of course, but there are also other people like a Klaus Schwab, where I would say, no, it's not about money. Maybe it's about, maybe there is a vanity issue, and of course he wants, he likes so much that this very important people are all coming to him, and that's exactly what Jennifer is saying. He has to risk now something. He has to risk his friendships, and that's what he's doing a little bit. But she nailed it, actually. That's maybe what happens if you reach so much and in the end you let it just go. But at the same time, he risked it with Monsanto. I think Monsanto is not anymore a part of the whole thing.
But it's not just Monsanto, is it? Nestle's as well is a pretty dodgy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, there's a whole stack of
totally,
yeah.
That's what I think. There is this. Can you work with these companies? I mean, especially with Monsanto. Especially because
they are
so
the
clear.
devil. Yeah.
That's so clear. With Nestle, I was talking to Dominic Worry, and that's not in the film because I couldn't make that point when he said probably Nestle is not as bad as everybody thinks, because there was a film about Nestle, and we, with our filmmaking, are very powerful, actually. You know? And and so the reputation of Nestle is maybe over emphasized
Sure.
to being a really bad company. And Dominic Worry said, you have to look closely if it's really like that.
But I do think you're right. I think Jennifer did nail it when she's, it's about becoming too comfortable, isn't it? But once you get a seat at the table, do you throw some food around, or do you just eat? And I think your film is a really interesting conversation about that problem, about the balance between diplomacy and activism and a seat at the table. Now I'm gonna ask a question that one of the audiences sent in. So they've said the screen review said the film was fascinatingly and admirably balanced. Was this hard to achieve with the material when you started the edit?
Yes, it was very hard, but that was the main aim, to get that film. So first of all, to let him be able, that's what I already said, to let them say what they want to say, to get that across to the audience, but at the same time to address the issues, because we are all that we think something is wrong. I mean, everybody thinks something is wrong, and so you have to address these issues. It can't become a marketing film. So maybe in a certain moment I was almost convinced that that's good what they're doing, because I thought at least that's a platform, and he gathered all these people and these Jennifer Morgans and all these NGOs. They have now a possibility to get in contact with all these powerful people and to influence them. So he's not more than a host, providing that platform, and we can all use it. And I thought in a certain moment, maybe we shouldn't complain the whole day about how
they fly in on their private jets and
exactly, but just accept that that's a platform and there can be it can be used. But on the other side, I understood the appeasement, how far you can go, who you are allowed to invite, actually, also with our past, when there is this discussion, would it have been able to stop Hitler, for example, if not everybody would have invited him? So it's exactly this issue. How far can you go? But and he explains it. He and his people explain why they're doing it, and why they're inviting it, because they want not to lose these people. They want to influence them, and I can understand it, at least. So it's an opener. The film is more an opener to get rid of some of our preconceptions, but at the same time to accept that we have them, because I had them and everybody has them, but probably it's different. It's more complex, the whole issue.
That's fantastic. I'm being told we're going to wrap up. Just one quickly though. Did you like him? I sensed that you liked him. Yes, I liked him. Yeah, I have to admit, I really, because I like people who are doers, who are fighting for something, and I don't so much judge about if in the end you're successful. For me, it's more important that you try hard to change something. That's more important than maybe the success. Maybe he wasn't successful. I just don't know it after the film. I don't know if that whole enterprise is a successful enterprise.
It's
but
hard
at
to
least
know what success means as well. I mean, success isn't so tangible in a global scenario, is it? So it would have been pretty surprising if you could answer that outright.
Yeah.
Thanks ever so much for taking the time to chat. Thank you to Doc Edge for screening the film. Hope everybody enjoyed it.